I'm back, and this is actually my 100th video. So thank you everyone that subscribed, supporting me, and all that kind of thing. And if you haven't subscribed, this is the first time you're seeing this, please do that. Today, what I want to talk about is the diminished scale, and this is going to go in my Alan Holdsworth series. So if you haven't checked out my other videos on that, check it below. I'm going to try to make a playlist for Alan Holdsworth style videos because I have quite a few now. So check that out if you haven't. Anyways, talking about the diminished scale, this one is common in jazz, but also a few other types of music. You can also find this in classical music, etc. But I'm going to be talking about it in a jazz and fusion context today, and I'm going to go through it, and hopefully I'll show you some new things that perhaps other people aren't doing, and hopefully it'll be related to Holdsworth a little bit. So for those that don't know, the diminished scale is sometimes called the double diminished scale because it's two diminished chords together. Let me turn on my guitar here. I have distorted sound, but hopefully it'll be a little bit clean. So if I'm talking about a diminished scale, it would be, let's say, C diminished, and then C sharp diminished. If you put those two together, you get a diminished scale, all those notes together. So I'll show you how I usually finger it. I'll show you two ways actually. So let's do this C diminished. I'm gonna call this the half whole diminished. Other people say, the whole half is the natural one and this is the, I guess, mode or whatever of it. But I like to think of it as half whole diminished. So here we go. So starting here from C. I'll try to put something up there so you can see that. There's another way I finger it also. I don't know if this is easier or better. This is the alternate way. I don't use this as much, but I thought I'd put it in there for completeness. So you can also play like this. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, what I really want to talk about is how this is constructed and how this can help you. One of the great things about this scale is it's symmetrical. It's just half step, whole step, half step, whole step. And because of that, it repeats in minor thirds. And so anything you play, you can repeat it up a minor third. And because of that, you can also repeat it up a tritone or repeat it up a major sixth. So if I play something like this, I can also play it here, or here, or let's say I can do it in tritones like this. Or I can even do it in sixth, major sixth, like this. That's the beauty of the scale and what makes it so useful. It's easy to move around and it's easy to do kind of like patterns or melodies and move them around. And so later I'll show you more things about how to do that. But let's go over some chords that are contained in this. And this is another great thing about this. The diminished scale, one of the great things about it is you can use it over lots of different chords and you can construct many different chords out of it. So let me turn my volume down here so you can hear a little bit of a cleaner sound. So if we look at it, what chords can we get from it? So one, we can get a C minor chord. See if I can get that a little bit cleaner. Okay. We can also get a C major chord. We can also get a C diminished chord. So we have almost all of the triads possible, except for, of course, the sus triad and the augmented triad. But, 3 out of 5 isn't bad, right? But looking at seventh chords, we can get a few more. So we can get a dominant seventh. We can also get a minor seventh. We can also get a minor 7 flat 5. And we can also get the fully diminished seventh. So you've heard all those. Those are the chords in the diminished. And keep in mind, these are all just C. On top of that, because I told you it's symmetric and you can do anything in minor thirds, all those chords are not only like C minor, C major, C dominant 7, they're also in E flat, they're also in G flat, and they're also in A. So all those chords are available if you want to mess around with those, especially with the arpeggios. It can, you can create all sorts of really interesting and unique things with those. So instead of just, playing the scale up and down, one thing you can do is actually use those arpeggios to sequence things, and it creates a really interesting sound that you can't get out of other scales. So now let's talk about how to use these. So one way you can use this scale is you just use it over those chords. I know it sounds a little bit strange, but you can do this. So over a, let's say, C minor 7, you can play an actual C half whole diminished scale if you want. So let's see if I play C minor 7. I can play the C diminished scale, and I know some of you think won't that sound kind of strange if you just start going? Which is true, but one thing you can do is, like I said, since those chords are contained in there, target the chord tones and then just use the other non-chord tones as kind of like color. So let's see, something like this. So I'm sure you heard in there, it sounded like there's some, diminished bits, but for the most part, you can kind of hear that C minor 7 arpeggio. So that's what you can do, and you can do that with other things like, for example, a dominant 7th. If I have a C 7th here, I can do the exact same thing. So something like this. So something like that. So I threw in a few non-chord tones, but for the most part I try to stick to the chord tones. And by doing that, you can kind of control the amount of outside to inside playing. If you want it to sound inside over the chord, target the chord tones. If you want it to sound outside, use more like scale tones. I shouldn't say scale tones, non-chord tones. And so that's one way you can use this diminished scale. And because it's used over so many chords like minor 7, dominant 7, minor 7, flat 5, diminished 7, major, you can't use it on every chord, but you can use it over lots of chords. There's very few you can't use it over. On top of that, there's another way to do that, and that is by substituting something in your mind and playing over that chord. So if I was playing like a C major 7, which isn't contained in this scale, like C major 7, what I would do is I think, okay, once I get close to the end of the bar, wherever I want to play outside, I think in my mind of a G dominant 7, and I play the G half whole over it. So something like this. So as you heard in the middle there, I played some notes from the G half whole diminished scale to kind of take it out, and you can do that over pretty much anything. Just add that. Just think of the chord, the dominant chord, a fifth up, and then play the half whole diminished from that root. So I don't know if that's easy or not, but that's another way to do it if you don't want to use the first way and use note chord that are contained in it. I'm confusing myself. So hopefully that's clear. If it's not, leave me a comment down below and I'll try to explain it. And so now that you know how to use it, I know you're probably saying like, okay, that's good and all, but like what's the Holdsworth stuff? So Holdsworth uses this like quite often, and one of the ways he uses this that's different from other people is he oftentimes uses stretches. So instead of playing things like just straight up and down, like, he will stretch and he'll maybe skip one note and he'll have a like minor second or say minor third stretch in there. So it might be something like this. So I'll show you something he does fairly commonly. I think you'll probably recognize this sound. So if I'm doing the same C half whole diminished, I'm going to start on the A here. I'm going to go to C and then C sharp with my pinky finger. So now, as I told you before, it's symmetric, so you can go up a major sixth. So do the same thing here. So now, if I play it a little bit faster, something like this. Or even just hit part of it here and kind of mess around with it and kind of mix it up. So that's a common sound, and not only that, you can also move this up in minor thirds. So let's say I can do something like this. So something like that. And on top of that, I can move it not only in sixths, skipping a string like that, but I can move it in tritones. So I could do this, move it up a tritone, like that. So then put those together. So he oftentimes does things like that, and another pattern, instead of doing this pattern here, he'll do the same thing, but he'll do, for example, A, then B flat, C sharp. Then repeat that up a major sixth. So basically I do something like this, then here, then I can do a tritone, then here, so like this. So that type of thing. So you can move those all around, and it's really interesting, and you can even do less. If you don't want to do 3 notes per string, you can do like 2 notes per string, so something like this. I think I'm a little bit out of tune there. That wasn't so good. But anyways, you get the idea. So moving those around in sixth is a really common one. It's easy and it sounds like Holdsworth. So that's one really cool thing that I've found that he does often. Another thing he does that's a little bit interesting is you can use these and you can sequence arpeggios. So let's say one of my favorites is a minor 7. So if I do C minor 7, that's contained within the scale, so I could do that, but then let's try moving it up a tritone. So I could do this, then tritone would be the G flat minor 7, but then if we move up a tritone again, we have another C minor 7, so we can do something like that. Very common. We'd also do it in major or dominant 7, etc. if you want, but instead of just moving in tritones, because you're just moving from C, G flat, C, we can do it in other ways too. So we can try C minor 7, G flat minor 7, then we'll move up a minor third, A minor 7, then E flat minor 7. So if we do that a little bit faster. So that's a cool one, and it's like something I shouldn't say often, but sometimes hear Alan Holdsworth, he would do something like this. So I think that's really cool, and that's one of the cool things you can do with the diminished scale. There's all sorts of other cool things you can do, like you can play, a diminished triad just on one string if you really want to stretch. So I could do this. I probably need to put this on my other leg, but let's see. I could start here like E flat, G flat, A. Then I go up here. And then I can move up because, like I said, it's just built on diminished triads, half step apart. So I move up here. So I start here. That's getting into more like Sean Lane type stuff, but that's definitely a cool thing you can do and mess with. And that's one of those things like diminished scales. Oftentimes, if you just play them as is, it sounds cool, but it sounds almost like a kind of like jazz thing. But this is a way, if you really mess with these and start skipping notes in there, you can get lots of really cool sounds that maybe people haven't heard before or people don't do so often. So that's one of the things I really love about this scale. So I think that's about it. Maybe there's more things I can put in here, but that's enough for today. This is getting a little bit long. But I'd like to thank everyone again for supporting me through these 100 videos. If you want to keep supporting me, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment below, and subscribe if you haven't done that. And also share this video if you liked it so more people learn about it. Because the more people that watch these, the more time I can take off work and the more time I can spend doing these. So it means the more videos you'll get. So thank you very much, and until next time, see you.